Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Haley and today I'm posting my first video. I haven't ever uploaded, but I figured today would be a good day because it's the 1-year anniversary of the day my water broke. I had my baby Liliana prematurely. A lot of you, if you know me or follow me or have for a while, you probably already know that, but a lot of people don't, and a lot of people don't know the details of my story, so I feel like I would share that today. So let's get into it. Okay, so March 7th, 2018, I had a doctor's appointment, just normal at the obstetrician, like getting a checkup, check the heartbeat, check my urine like they normally do. Everything was fine, I was measuring fine, no problems, and I'd had no problems my entire pregnancy. I leave the appointment and I'm with my mom and my 2 sisters and we go to Walmart. I need a few things, like I picked up a couple of maternity pants that I found that were on clearance because I literally had like 1 pair at the time. So after we check out, we're leaving and I go to sit in the car, feel a trickle. I'm like, I think I just peed. I think I just peed a little bit. I told my mom and we were just kind of like, oh, maybe you did. And then I'm sitting there and we're like driving back towards home and I still feel it going and I know I'm not peeing and I'm still feeling fluid. And then I start feeling pressure like towards my butt and I'm like, something is not right. Something's wrong. So my mom's like, just call your doctor and tell them what's happening and we'll go there if we need to. So I called and spoke to one of the nurses and I'm like, I'm leaking. I'm starting to get pressure towards my bottom. And she's like, yeah, just go ahead and come on up here and we'll swab you to see if it's actually amniotic fluid. So we go there and I'm like freaking out the entire way because I'm like, this is not right. I should not be going into labor. She's gonna be 2 months early. So we get there and as soon as I step out of the car to walk up to the hospital, it just breaks completely, it just flood. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And my mom's like, yep, that was your water. And so we go walking up there and I'm holding my belly like limping. It's starting to hurt. I'm getting mild contractions. So I get up there and my mom's like, I think she's in labor. We need to go to labor and delivery. And 2 old ladies put me in a wheelchair and they take me back to a little room and I go to the bathroom because my clothes are totally soaked and I'm gonna change into the little gown and it's still just coming out like a lot. Sorry, TMI, which I didn't even know I had that much fluid. I never knew how much comes out. This is my first child. I didn't really know much at all. So I'm changing my clothes. I go back and lay down. I'm really starting to get stronger contractions. They're coming closer together. And the doctor or nurse finally comes in. I'm like, thank God. It seems like it's been forever. But she gets a cotton swab, takes a sample, and then confirms it's amniotic fluid, your water's broken. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not prepared for this. I'm here thinking I have like 2 more months. My doctor actually came from the obstetricians that I go to. She came over because her office is right by Lexington Medical Center. And she starts talking to me and she's like, so your water's broken. We don't yet know a reason why. Sometimes these things just happen. But you're not leaving the hospital without your baby. You're having a baby. And I'm like, huh? Freaking out. She tells me they're gonna try to hold me over until like 34 weeks. I think I was like 32 weeks and 3 days and her lungs weren't even developed yet. She was just at this stage in development where she was practice breathing, hiccuping in my stomach. So they have to stop the labor for now. So they give me, I think it was called magnesium sulfate through an IV. And then they give me 2 big shots in my right thigh. Oh, it was so painful. But she gave me 2 shots there and then like rubbed it in. I'm like, God, you're killing me. But my daughter comes back and she tells me they're gonna transfer me to Palmetto Health Hospital because over there they have a neonatal center and Lexington Medical Center didn't really. So if I were to stay at Lexington Medical Center and have her, Liliana upon birth would be transferred to Palmetto and I'd be in a totally different hospital than her after delivery. So I was really thankful that she did that for me. After that, they get me an ambulance. They come in and the magnesium sulfate that like stops your contractions. It had me feeling like so loopy, like it almost feels like you're high because it's a muscle relaxer, but super strong. So the ambulance people come in, get me up on the gurney. They're putting all these gadgets all over me for my heart rate, blood pressure cuff and all this. They take me to the ambulance and it wasn't that far. I think it was like maybe 10 minutes away I was transported. But I was like, this is so scary. I've never even been in an ambulance. I don't know, it was scary. So I get to Palmetto Health Hospital. They get me a room. They roll me on in there and help me get in the bed, and my water's still running down my legs, so they give me this big diaper pad kind of thing. Usually women wear them after they've delivered when you're still bleeding a lot, but I needed it for my fluid. So I'm laying in the bed and they put these monitors across my stomach. There's one that's measuring my contractions, and there's one that's measuring the baby's heartbeat. And her heartbeat was still good. She was fine, which I was really worried about. I didn't want her to be in distress. And I really wasn't having contractions anymore. They were super, super, super small. So the next day I speak to a neonatal doctor. He comes in. They teach me about the NICU, what it's gonna be like, because she's obviously gonna be in the NICU when she's born. I'm not gonna get to just take her home. He tells me how they want to get her lungs a little bit more developed, and that's why they want to try and keep her in until 34 weeks gestation. So those first 2 days of me being in there, I get shots in my legs, and they have steroids in them, and they go to the baby so her lungs will develop faster, because they want to keep me till 34 weeks with her in there, but they don't know. The entire time I was in the hospital, which I ended up staying 11 full days in the hospital on bed rest, leaking fluid, until I got to have her, which I didn't know how long I was gonna be there. It was like up in the air. They were telling me, okay, so we don't really know. If she decides to come, then she decides to come. We're gonna try and keep her in for a while longer. Don't be getting up. The first couple days they had me peeing in a bedpan, and I was like, this is miserable. But they finally let me get up and go to the toilet. And I wasn't allowed to shower. It was awful. And for me, I like to shower every single day. As a person who showers every single day, it was miserable. I felt disgusting. After 10 days of me being there, they finally let me get my shower the day before delivery. So anyways, going back, over the course of the stay, they gave me antibiotics, a lot of fluids. They gave me an IV, obviously, which they did that at the hospital before coming here. So it was a lot of antibiotics, because once your water's broken, is like a high risk for infection, and it can get to the baby and hurt her or hurt me. So they do all that. Over the next few days of me being there, doctors come in and start throwing around like C-section, like I could possibly be getting a C-section, which I was freaking terrified of. I was like, so am I gonna get one? And they're like, well, I don't know. Because over the time of me being there, she was having a lot of D cells, they call them. Her heart rate would drop drastically really fast. And it was because I had so little fluid left in my stomach that she would end up rolling and turning over and laying on her umbilical cord. And it was cutting off her blood going to her and stuff. Which was another stressful thing in itself, because when those things would happen, the alarms would go off for the nurses to come in, and they would really, really fast turn me over on one side, and if the heart rate didn't go up then, they knew that she didn't roll off of the umbilical cord, she was still on it, so they have to turn me the other way. That went on for 10 days. It was scary, for one, because they told me that if they kept turning me and they couldn't get her heart rate back up, I was going in for like an emergency C-section. So that was another scary thing. But long story short, after all this, they did schedule a couple of days before my 34-week mark to induce me. So that night, midnight, I couldn't eat anything. The next day, they woke me up at 7, had me getting some stuff together because I was getting switched to another room, the delivery room, where I would be giving birth. And I'm so scared. I'm about to have this baby, and I'm also thinking, like, what if something goes wrong? So it's a lot of nerves. My parents are there, and my boyfriend, my sisters. We go to the room, they give me a little pill. I can't remember now what it was called, but it's supposed to help ripen your cervix and help you dilate a little bit before they start giving you Pitocin. I don't think the whole time I was there, I don't even think I was dilated. I think maybe I was at a 1. But they gave me the pill at 8 a.m. A couple hours went by, I think around 12. They wanted to give 4 hours for the pill to kick in. They came in and they checked me, and I was still dilated at like a 2. So they went ahead and they started me on Pitocin through the IV, and literally within 30 minutes, it was hard contractions. Oh boy, okay, it's really happening now. Like, this hurts. So after a little while, they came and checked on me again. I was at like a 4. And they told me, I don't know what you're planning on doing, if you want an epidural, but if you want to, you need to get it soon, because once you get dilated past like a 5 or 6, I think they said, they can't do it anymore. And I don't care, judge me for this if you want to. I wanted an epidural. I admire the women who go through labor, a natural birth with no pain, medicine, or anything. I don't know how y'all do it, because I was sitting there dilated at a 4. I was hurting so bad. I like had both my hands on the rails. I was squeezing so hard, my hands were just shaking. And I remember I was trying to hold out as long as I can. And finally, I just told my mom, I'm not trying to be a baby. This hurts. I really need the epidural. So we called the nurse in, and they get the people to come in and do my epidural. That goes well. I lay back down, and they give me the catheter too, because you can't feel anything like below your waist. So you're gonna be peeing if you don't have it. So they did that. Checked me again later, and I remember being at, I think it was a 6, and then they came in, checked again. I was at a 7. And they also, during all this, had me on, like, I think they call it a Foley bag. Tubes stuck up in there, my private area. And it was flushing fluid, like cycling fluid through me, because I had such a little amount. It was strange. I never knew that was a thing till that happened, being in preterm labor. So I remember they checked me. I was at like a 6 after the epidural, after a little time went by. Then I was at a 7. The contractions were killing me. It was awful. My epidural started to wear off. When I was at like a 7, the people who do the epidurals come back in, and they gave me a higher dosage in epidural in my back, because I was literally crying. I could still feel all my contractions, just my legs were numb. So they have a little button you hold, and the little machine was behind my head, behind the bed. I was pushing it like crazy. Every 15 seconds, you were allowed to push to get more medicine through the epidural to help the pain. I was sitting there like pushing. I remember my boyfriend, he would help me push the button. He was standing beside me. He was like, okay, here, I'm gonna give you another one. He pushed it, and then it was literally only 5 seconds had gone by. I was like, can you give me some more? Can you push the button? And he's like, no, it says I still have 10 seconds. And I was like, oh my God, it was awful. But right after that happened, I got to a 7, I started feeling all this pressure. It's so weird to explain. In my butt, it feels almost like about to have to poop. But it was like in there and in my pubic bone, kind of. I could feel something. And I was like, I think her head is down there. I think her head's dropping. So the doctor comes in, and it seemed like it took forever because I was scared. Talking to my mom, I was like, are they coming? Are they coming? I kept like looking at the door. And then they come in. I was like, I feel like she's coming. Like I feel her down there. It's so weird. I just felt it out of nowhere. I didn't feel like I had to push yet, but it was coming. So she checks me and tells the nurse, oh, she's complete. And I was like, huh? What does that mean? Wait, what? Am I a 10? And then they come back. They get the little thing. They put the baby on after it's born. They're starting to get all their tools out. And no joke, 10 doctors come in. 10 doctors and nurses, fully scrubbed down, gloves, masks. And I was like, oh my God, that scared me, first of all. But when you have a baby who's preterm, they have a lot of doctors in there, specialists and stuff, so that if something were wrong with the baby, like she comes out breathing or whatever, they're there and can help. So that scared the shit out of me, excuse my language. I'm freaking out. They pull the bed thing down and get my feet up in the stirrups and slide me down. And I remember one nurse had my leg when I was getting ready to push, and then my mom had the other one. And I think my boyfriend held it a couple times, but he looked terrified. He was nervous, visibly very anxious. So they tell me, all right, during this next contraction, we're gonna have you push. So I start to feel it, and they see it peaking on the chart, and they're like, okay, push. So I'm pushing, and the best way I know to explain it for those of you that haven't had kids is if you're trying to push a poop out, just bearing down really hard. If you're constipated, that's the best way I know to explain it. And they tell you when you push to act like you're pooping. But it only took me about, it didn't take me that long. I remember pushing, and I told the nurses, I'm so sorry if I poop, I'm so sorry. Because I know some women poop during labor. So I don't know why I was thinking about that in the moment. I mean, my freaking vagina was out in the open for everyone to stare at, and I thought about pooping, whatever. Anyways, it was about 20, maybe not even that long, 15 or 20 minutes of pushing. And they're like, okay, here's your baby. And they pull her out and they hold her up. And I was scared. She was blue, but she did cry. So I was so happy upon hearing that, because I thought she was gonna come out not breathing or something, just because of the fact she was early, and I knew they'd given me the steroids for her lungs to develop. But so many worries were going through my mind. I remember tears, and my mom was crying, and my boyfriend was crying. It was the most crazy thing I've ever experienced. You never know you can love that much until you like look at your baby. It's insane. It sounds corny, it sounds cheesy, but it's true. You don't know love like the love you have for your child. But immediately after they take her out of me, they don't put her on my chest, which you normally see with typical deliveries. Take her over and put her under the little heat thing, the little bed they first lay them on, and they're giving her an IV. I think it was in her hand or her arm. It's hard to see. I'm sitting here frantically, what are they doing? What are they doing? And then they wrap her back up, and I'm looking like, oh my gosh, I want to see her, because I barely got to look at her yet. They pick her up and they're like, here you go, mama. They laid her swaddled up on me. I swear it was max 5 seconds. And then they were like, okay, we're gonna go. And they took the baby to the NICU. And I remember it was so hard for me. I had her, and then they took her away immediately. I didn't get to hold her. I didn't get to do skin to skin with her straight off the bat like a lot of moms get to do. It still makes me upset to think about. But my boyfriend went, and he took off after them to see her in the NICU, and he got to watch her get weighed. And she came out being 4 pounds and 6 ounces, tiny little bean. So that was another thing. We didn't even have preemie clothes. You don't expect you're gonna have your baby 2 months early, almost 6 weeks. So my mom had went and had got some little baby clothes for her and some diapers. But I remember I was still in the room. My boyfriend came back and told me all this stuff and showed me some pictures he took of her. He told me the weight and her length, 18 inches. She was a small little baby. But I remember laying there, and the ladies got me all cleaned up, took me to the toilet, and I still could not feel my legs after giving birth. She was trying to help me. I was like, girl, I can't get up. So get me cleaned up. They put me back in the bed, and she was like, here, try to eat something. After I ate, she came back in. The nurse pressed so hard on my stomach. I was literally about to cry just from that. There's that press on your stomach to make sure you don't get any clots or hemorrhages in there from where you just had all that blood coming out. Some people say that doesn't bother them. That freaking hurt. After I just went through labor all that time, 10 or 12 hours of labor total. I had her at 10:58 p.m. After all that, I was like, I'm done. Y'all leave me alone, stop poking me with needles, stop touching me. And she comes in, okay, let me just knead on your stomach. But they ended up taking me to a normal room. And me and my boyfriend slept in there, and Liliana was in the NICU still. And I got to see her for the first time the next day. So I didn't even get to see her that night, because the NICU, I think, closed at a specific time, and they didn't want me to get up yet. And they wanted to make sure I could go pee and do number 2 after birth. Sorry about that. My camera just died, so I'm back now. Anyways, the next day, I got up early. My boyfriend helped me in the wheelchair, and he pushed me down to the NICU. And they take me in there, and I see her, and she's laying in her little bed. And she had her little IV in her little arm, and she was asleep. But I remember being like, oh my gosh, you're so precious. I finally could look at her good. When they took her the first time, after I had her, I didn't even get to see her. I didn't get to look at her good. I delivered her, and then she was gone. But I remember being so happy. She was breathing on her own. She never had to be on oxygen. She did have a little feeding tube in her nose that they were putting milk through, and I was pumping milk. And at the time it was only colostrum, but they would squeeze it through the little tube that was going into her nose, and that was how she would eat, because she actually couldn't really suck the bottle on her own yet. So I saw her for the first time. I took a lot of pictures. She woke up, and I got to look at her and talk to her. I didn't get to hold her yet. I wasn't supposed to, but they told me I could put my hand in the side, and I opened the little door up, and I touched her leg, and they tell you don't rub like this, only kind of like pat or poke, because being early like that, her skin was so fragile that it could hurt her, which was crazy to me. Never heard of that. But we would go and check on her a couple times throughout the day. I'd be pumping, still kind of just chilling in the room. A couple of days go by. I think on my second day after delivering, I could go home. I had been able to pee and poo like normal, like what they expected. I didn't have too much bleeding still. I did have stitches. I had one little tear down there from giving birth. I got like 1 stitch in it. It wasn't bad. I started getting my stuff ready and packing stuff up, and it started to really set in. I was getting really sad because I knew I was about to leave her at the hospital. And the nurse comes in, I'm signing all the discharge paperwork and hand it to her, and she goes, okay, you're good to go. So I've got all my stuff packed up. My mom's there with my sisters and my boyfriend's there. And we go down to see her one last time in the NICU before we go. And I remember just, I was so upset. I never wanted to have to leave her there. I never thought when I was pregnant and when I imagined delivering a baby, I never imagined having her so early and having such a abnormal birth experience, and I never thought of leaving her. I just always thought of how it happens. Like, you go home, you take your baby home. But she wasn't ready. She still had to be looked after a little bit, work on her feeding and gain some weight on her first. But we got all the stuff ready, went to get in the car, and I was crying, upset. That's probably the hardest thing I've ever done, was leave that day after I got discharged, her being left at the hospital. So hard. But I do appreciate and really commend all the people that took care of her. I think it was 3 weeks and 6 days she was there, almost a whole month. I just really appreciate and am grateful for all the nurses. Her being in the hospital and me being at my parents, staying at my parents, I was 40 minutes away almost. And my mom would drive me down there every day so I could see her, and I would spend about an hour or so, sometimes a little bit more. And after a few days, I finally got to where I could hold her, and I would feed her, and we had to teach me all this stuff. And after giving her a car seat test to make sure she was stable enough to go home in a car seat in the car without stopping breathing. That's another thing that you usually don't think of having to happen. We were able to take her home. Me and my boyfriend drove up there, and I was so excited, just nervous and every feeling you could imagine. We got her and wheeled her on down, and the nurses helped us get her in the car. I handed us the car seat, and Chris put her in there. And I was just, nerves were hitting me hard. I got in the car, and I remember being in the back seat sitting with her and Chris driving us home. And I was just looking ahead like, oh wow, this is really happening. Like, she's going home with us. I was so scared. I had never had a baby before. This was my first time, and I had so many other worries about her being preemie. But we got her home, and I just felt so excited and happy, and it made it all worth it when I could finally take her home. All the trouble and the worries, and it felt so good to be able to have my eyes on her all the time and take care of her and change her diaper, and it was exciting. And now here we are. She turns 1 in 11 days. I can't believe it. It seems like just yesterday. And now she's like 16, 17 pounds from that tiny little 4.5 pound baby that she was. You know what? I'm gonna get her on the camera. Come on, look over here. Look at yourself. Oh, it's you. Oh, look. Here's Liliana, my little preemie baby. She's doing so good now. She grows. She's still small for her age. She still wears. She's about to be a year next week, a little over a week, and she still wears like 9 months for the most part. There's a couple sleepers that she has. She still wears 3 to 6 months. She's just a tiny little girl. But she's doing good. She hits her milestones. She likes eating sweet potatoes. You like your sweet potatoes? Jill in her milk. Look. And even though she is small, she's still growing on the curve of what she's supposed to. She gains weight every appointment, so I'm not too worried about her. She's doing great. You doing good? You so happy? She loves to look at herself. I'm surprised she's not really doing it. Look. Look. Oh, look at the baby. Ooh. Who's that? Say mama. Liliana. Well, I think that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what else you want to see, what other kind of videos, any questions you might have, leave in the comments. If you want to know more about her NICU experience, I might do a video about that. But I'm not just doing birth videos, child videos. I might do makeup videos too, whichever I decide to do. But I think that's it for now. I'm gonna go drink some milk. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Mwah. Say bye-bye.